to start, Kendra, with how'd you get into the art? I mean, how'd you get into the arts? And when did you decide that this was for you?
Okay. Well, growing up in Sidney, Ohio, I had piano lessons from the time I was in kindergarten. So
Oh,
I took
wow.
piano lessons from a very early age. I remember learning to read notes around the same time I was learning to read chapter books. So it's been in the family. I have great grandparents who were musicians, professional musicians in Cleveland. Vocalists, pianists, drummers during the Great Depression. And so it's kind of been in the family, in the blood a little bit. Did marching band or did middle school band at Holy Angels, did marching band at Lehman Catholic.
Gotcha.
Elaine Schweller Schneider,
Yep.
huge influence on my life. Huge, because when I mastered one instrument, she was like, okay, try another one, try another one, try another one.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, to have a teacher that has that kind of insight into, here's a child that needs to try a different instrument. Here's a child that obviously has some sort of ability. Let's keep seeing what else she can do. So,
Yes. And that was very much Elaine. So
what
I'm
do
just
you,
really happy to have her.
oh, she's still very active around here today,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
wonderful. I love her to pieces. I really do. Um, what was it about music or art? Can you articulate how you knew it was for you? What was it that it did for you?
Well, it was obviously the place where my talent showed. In as far as I had two other sisters, one older and one younger, and they were also very talented musicians in their own right. But I just felt like it was the emotional pull. I felt it was what music did to my heart, what it did to my soul, what it did to my mind. 2 years ago, I was actually diagnosed with ADHD, which they think I probably had back then. And that was thinking about it, music was a very therapeutic thing for me because it took a lot of my attention and I had to try and I
Yeah.
had to focus on doing that. So it really just fit into my lifestyle, whether I knew it or not. And it was very, I don't know how to express it in words. It's just that if I didn't have music constantly either playing on the radio, in the car, as background, or if I wasn't physically doing it, it was something that I liked and that I wanted to be a part of. So I then became a band director, and I was just like, teaching. This is great. This is wonderful. And I loved staying connected with the music and being able to get others to. It was more important for me. I love to perform. I still do perform sometimes, but for me, it was more trying to provide, those other
Right.
younger people with that same experience. So I can't really articulate why, but I just felt it in my soul. I don't know
See, I
why.
think that's it. I mean, I have a daughter that's a musician. And when she got an instrument in her hand, and really when she went to the Ohio Northern Music Camp, and I think she was still elementary school, she came back, or right junior high, somewhere in there, she came back and she said, I finally belong. And I thought, okay, that's a definition of someone who's found what they need to do, found how, she belongs. She found she found her people, so to speak.
Yep.
She also has never been challenged enough, and music is a constant challenge because you're never going to perfect it. There's always a new technique. There's always someone better than you. There's always, so it was it just fit. And you're right. I don't know the words necessarily for it. I do know that there's a lot of benefits, and that's one of the things maybe we could talk a tiny bit about, or what are the benefits of a music education? Because a lot of people say, well, you're in music, what could you do with that? I mean,
Oh goodness, I have
yeah,
a
and
big
that's
answer.
what I say, whoa. So what are some of the benefits for you, for kids, just being in, even if you don't use it in your whole, as a career?
I think I think one of the biggest things, humanitarian wise, is that the music is one thing that has been found throughout human history, to exist. It is the one
Yeah.
thing that we all have that connects us. Frequencies. I'm a big, strong believer in. Some people will hear a chord progression that makes them cry, in a series of a song. A classical song that doesn't even have any words, and it'll bring you to tears. I think those frequencies resonate with people,
Hmm.
on a much deeper level, and I think that is something that I think that's what draws. I think that's what draws people in. I don't know one person who doesn't like music. They may not like
Yeah.
a certain style, but Tchaikovsky isn't for everybody, but neither is Van Halen. So,
Right. That's
um,
right. Right.
and I think that, as music changes and evolves, and people say, oh, just that rock and roll music or all that rap music, I think hip hop and rap have been the most amazing, and jazz music have been the most amazing things recently, and in the past couple centuries, to come out of, even the American scene, because it's very lyrical. It has to do with,
Hmm.
communicating in words, as well as, getting, those frequencies, those beats, those things. People, ancient cavemen and Native Americans back in, the BC
That's
eras,
right.
those drumming, they had ceremonies that were supposed to call on rain, that were worshiping certain gods. And so music has been something part of that people have been a part. There's I think it's, when people say, well, they can cut the arts and they can do this, well, we have nothing to science and math about if we don't create things, and music is part of
That's right.
creativity.
I
So,
think creativity, I was just reading this. We're in a time period where technology is moving so fast that we are educating children in kindergarten and we don't even know what for,
yeah,
because technology is changing that fast. And the only thing that's going to give children the flexibility of mind and spirit is creativity. And
yes,
art teaches creativity. And that's
yep,
why you can't just, I'm not against science, technology, engineering, and math, but I sure think you need to either make sure the arts are in there, because that's the spark.
yes,
That's where you go beyond what is known to what is not. And I think,
correct.
that to me is exciting. That to me, and I am not an artist. You do not want me to sing. I do not play an instrument. I don't dance and I don't draw. So, but I love and I understand what art does. I can see it, I can feel it, I know it, and I think it's underrated. And I
Oh,
think
absolutely.
I do. I think people need, and that's kind of one of the reasons why we started doing these, was to get out all the hidden things that art does that you don't
Yes.
even think about. Because I think frequencies, have they not proven that your brain's on a frequency,
Mm-hmm.
your heartbeat is a frequency. So, and certain frequencies can heal, certain frequencies, they know this. So, music is a frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is, we got putting all these science aspects, not to mention the fact that sometimes they're just plain fun.
Right.
We get all heady about it, but sometimes you just need to laugh and enjoy yourself. So you
Correct.
are a percussionist, correct? Did I get that right?
Yes, by degree. Yes.
By degree. So is that your favorite instrument? And how many instruments do you play?
Okay, so I started off with piano. Percussion, has a bazillion different instruments, in it, and so when you major in percussion, you have to do them all: marimba, xylophone, timpani, snare drum, bass drum, all of that kind of stuff. But my favorite, by far, is the steel pan. Um,
Oh, wow.
Yes, I was just very blessed to go to Miami University in a certain period of time where, Dr. Chris Tanner, he's the dean of music now, at Miami, but he was, just a professor, at the time, and he built a steel band because his teacher from West Virginia University was Ellie Minette, the, father of the modern steel pan. And so Ellie, he got educated by Ellie, and this man from Trinidad and Tobago in the 1940s took, from tradition, it was just all beating on trash and cans and stuff like that because music was outlawed in Trinidad and Tobago, and so they had to find other things. And so they used to steal oil drums from the Navy base there, and
Wow.
they would. Yeah, they would beat down the centers of them and then push them back up, and then all these little spots and notes were, they could hammer them out so they'd sound like different pitches. Well, Ellie was the first one to put 12 tones on a pan, just like a piano octave, right?
That's
And so,
incredible.
yeah, and so then there's several other of his friends too that helped develop other kinds, but it really, some people call it the Steel Orchestra because like the lead pan would be like the violin.
Okay, so we had been talking about how the origin of pan and
Yeah.
how they were made, which I guess I didn't realize that. I mean, think about what an incredible ear that took.
Yeah.
To be able to locate notes by pounding out different places on a pan.
Yep. When he heard, he said he would always say that I had the honor to be instructed by him on a guest basis at my university several times.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and he was just amazing. He just passed away actually recently. But he was 90 some years old. He amazing man, and he just wanted to keep making pans. And what they say is he had a tuning, the science of it he knew, but he said that he wanted to make what he was hearing from the radio from the New York Philharmonic. He wanted to make those sounds, but they couldn't afford string instruments, so this was his answer. And
oh my gosh.
it's absolutely beautiful. And I think my university steel band has some things on Spotify that you can look up, but I know that we've done several, a few when I was there and a few after I was there, classical pieces, because they transfer so well because he set it up that way without any prior musical knowledge besides the ear. He knew what he wanted to hear and he wasn't going to stop till then. And they also call that spirit, so the pan got me just super excited. I don't know why. It's a lot of, it's very rhythmic, rhythms I had never heard before as a Western musician. Lots of world music and rhythms, and it just bit me. And they call that getting bit by the jumbie, and a jumbie is the pan spirit, is what they call it.
I love that. That is it's just wonderful. I mean, yeah. I think it's not something we would have picked up. It's not a native to our culture. The fact that we're incorporating it, to me, is fascinating because it's still the human spirit. That's the thing. Music is so ingrained. It's so part of us. It transcends culture. It transcends language. And there's a perfect example of it. And now I think it's very popular in this country. I mean, I love it.
Yes, and there's a lot of people who are now offering, like I know Indiana, I think it's Indiana. No, maybe it's not IU. I think there's an Illinois, Northwestern maybe, offers there's a man named Liam Teague, and he is a Trinidadian, and he plays pan just absolutely beautifully, and has amazing compositions. And he teaches you can do jazz pan. You can study jazz pan there because
wow.
It fits really well into the jazz idiom in the United States. So really some really cool things happening, and for some reason around the Midwest, pan is huge. It is also
that's
on
interesting.
The coast, but yeah, there's a big center here around West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky. There's a couple bands in Colorado, and then you see them just around the coast. Texas has a few as well, but it is growing. It is growing big time, and I know that Florida has a big presence for it as well.
That makes a little sense to me, yeah. So how did you get you went from musician to band leader, and then you went on your own?
Yeah.
So kind of walk me through those transitions.
Okay, so I think I knew I always wanted to be a teacher. I was going to be a history teacher until Elaine Schweller-Schneider told me, I came to her one day and I said, okay, Ms. Schweller, I'm thinking I don't want to be a history teacher anymore, because I'd asked her for a history, a letter of recommendation to teach history. And I said, I hate to make you do this, but can you redo my letter of recommendation for a music major? And she handed it to me, letter still sealed, and said, I already did it for a music major. I knew you were going to change your mind.
I love it.
So she, as much as that, that she challenged me so much, and she always just kept telling me, as a woman, you are going to, as a woman band director, you're going to find that there's going to be a lot of struggle. So you got to keep, it's not that I have to be the best, but I have to be the most consistent. I have to have the coolest head. I have to be the most logical. You can't, as a woman, you can't let your emotions take over.
Yep.
And all of those things. But I think those things are the most beautiful things to teach children to make music. So when I stepped in front of an ensemble, a lot of directors are, all about follow my stick. And I'm like, no, if they can't, we've got to be able to play the notes. This is what being in tune means. And so let's play games with that and see how that is. I use music education a lot as, just problem solving a lot of times. I used to relate it to fractions a lot because the time signatures in music are legitimately fractions. It's math. Reading, those same type of reading skills that you need to read a book. All of those things are there. The comprehension, what does this mean, and what do I have to do to make that sound come out? So, that it was wonderful, and I loved it, and I thrived in, I think, the beginning band world because I loved beginners. I loved taking them from going, I don't know what instrument I want to play, Mrs. Wendelin, to getting them to graduate from 8th grade band and making the top band at the high school.
Right.
It was just, that was something to me that was a journey that if they wanted to join that journey, then we would go through it together. And that was what excited me about the younger ones. But I got really, I'm not gonna lie, I was teaching in Florida, and Florida's teacher salaries are awful. I had a master's degree and 8 years of experience, and I was being paid less than $40,000 a year.
Ouch.
And so it was, that you're looking at, and then Florida cost of living, which is ridiculous. So,
right.
You're scraping by, but I was like, what, money is not going to stop me from, doing what I love to do. But then when it got to the point of, there's this paperwork and there's that paperwork, and then you have to do all the bookkeeping yourself, and you have to do all these things that you train. I was teaching kids 20% of the time and doing all the extraneous extra stuff.
Right stuff.
And that was not my passion. So unfortunately, if I could just be, I was thinking to myself, I could just be left alone to teach kids. If I didn't have to worry about, now I love that. I had some of the most supportive parents ever. I also had some of the most, unsupportive parents ever. And so it was an interesting thing to try to do, but then I finally got tired of it. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be in this system. I don't like, it was after state testing in Florida. The months of March and April, my band room was right above the computer lab. And so we were not allowed to play because they were doing state testing. But yet I still had to go to a music performance assessment and my kids had to be assessed. And based on that, part of my teacher competency score was tied to that. See, they're just not setting the kids or me up for success in my profession.
Right.
So I started putting out feelers back home in Ohio, because I'm from Sidney, Ohio, and grew up in the Dayton, Cincinnati area. And so I was like, well, let me put out some feelers to some of my friends who are still back there, see if anybody's got anything. Because I knew switching. I had taught in Kentucky and Ohio before I went down. So I knew not a whole bunch was probably going to change. But if I could get closer to home, that might make me feel better. Well, some of my friends said, well, you should just design for marching band because that's what you're really good at. You're beginning band or the marching band design. You understand all of that. My mom helped do that at Layman. We were always sewing flags, and I was always talking to Elaine about the music and, in on like the show concepts. And so, and in Florida, I had started with my husband and my brother-in-law an indoor percussion ensemble through Winter Guard International, and competed down there locally, and were pretty successful. And so, but again, the support there wasn't, the kids were amazing, and the parents wanted it so bad. The school district didn't really find any worth in it. So the funding, so trying to travel and compete was not something that they were willing to help fund. And it seemed bad. I just couldn't charge kids and families $2,000 to $3,000 to travel 4 times just because we lived
right.
in the middle of nowhere. So when I came back to Ohio, actually a friend of mine, Jessica Moore, who is the band director at Covington High School right now,
Okay.
she said, "Hey, there's a big band program here who would love to get a visual caption head position going. So basically, plug your ears, watch a marching band. That's everything that I'm in charge of." And she said, he's looking for somebody. I know you've been a visual caption head down there for 6 years. Are you thinking about that? And Steve Aylward at Miamisburg called me. And after I told Jessica, yeah, go ahead and give him my information. And he called me. We talked twice. And then he said, yeah, come on up. And a week later, I turned in my, told the middle school I'd be leaving at the end of the year. And some of my kids were so sad, but most of them were like super happy because they knew, I think they could tell that, there were other things that
Right.
I was going to be doing. So, I left and I didn't look back. And so I was the visual caption head I am still the visual caption head at Miamisburg with the marching band. I started their indoor winds program with Steve and another band director there, Ryan Wintersheimer. We started the indoor winds program, and they have it's great to be part of a program that's not only a competitive program, but that is such a pedagogically solid program.
Right,
also.
right, yep.
So it's not just about the competition. And competition, I really started to pick up this passion too of competition gets a really bad rap for competitive music, just because, it's hard to make something objective or something that's objective and subjective. It's hard to match those two things together. Right. And how do you grade art? How do you say this piece of art is better than that piece of art?
Correct. Yeah.
But there's some things that are pretty common in the band world, so we can attempt to judge those things. It's either in tune or it's out of tune. That's pretty simple.
Yeah, that's it. That one's it. You can either hear that it's right or you cringe a little.
Exactly. So I just started there. And then since then, I have been doing work at Walnut Hills High School, Moeller MND. I've been working at Lehman Catholic behind the scenes a little bit throughout all of these years. I'm just trying to help with that. I've been involved at Covington High School, Middletown High School, Hamilton High School, Fairborn High School. So I'm trying to be involved with all of those things, and I landed myself, because of my love of spreading all of this, I landed myself a board position on Mideast Performance Association's board, doing the WINS, being the WINS representative, and trying to encourage everybody to come out. And a lot of people came out this winter because in the fall, that's normally marching band, right? But
right.
Coronavirus took marching band away from many, many people. And so now everybody was like, okay, well, we need to do something. And so now they're trying this indoor thing, which of course a lot of people before were like, I don't want to do indoor, but it's really cool for WINS because now they're just in a gym, not on a football field. So if you have a teeny tiny band of 26 kids, we can hear them inside.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So that's why I really love the indoor activity for smaller band programs. I think it's wonderful. So I kind of have a passion for just performance, getting any way that we can get kids out and performing, getting them out of their shells, getting them to know what that feels like to bring joy through their performance. Because we can sit in our room with our clarinet and play all we want, but and be happy with that. But music is a gift and it's meant to be shared. Right.
There's something about when you're playing, I mean, we see it on when someone comes on stage. There's something very magical about someone who can come on a stage and there's one of them or two of them and maybe they're playing a piano and yet they have reached 700 people sitting there. Mm-hmm. They're giving them an experience and everybody's sharing in it. There's something totally magical about that. It's when you're in a moment that's so special like that, you'll just know it and you'll be addicted to live performance.
Yes. I mean, addicted is a good word to use because the adrenaline rush, it's just like, people who want to go jump out of an airplane. It's the same type of adrenaline rush to perform music, especially when you know that tons of people are watching you. When I asked my kids in every ensemble, I was like, are you aware more of the judges or are you aware more of the people? And they're like, we don't even think about the judges. It's the people. It's the people.
Well, see, I love that. I love the
Yes.
fact, the other thing is sometimes when there's a story
Yes.
that they can put in their heads while playing that music, then they
Yes.
know they're actually communicating through music this story to people. In that, even when you have a high school kid, and I know somebody, well, they don't, that's not something they could understand, but that's not true. That's
Right.
not
That is
true at
absolutely
all.
not true. Yeah. I have 12 and 13-year-olds in the winds ensemble right now at Miamisburg, who they're eighth graders, and they march on the tarp with us. And when you teach a wind player to not only just like perform well on their instrument, but also like make eye contact with people who
Yes.
are this close to you, and then when you're done playing be able to have like that, the stage performance, it's really combining the indoor activity a lot more than just outside marching band, because they got the hat on and no one can really
Right.
see them, they're up
And
there.
they're, yeah. Now, do
Yeah.
you coordinate the drill? Do you come up, you actually, you get a song and then you're responsible for what the drill looks like on the field? Well,
Correct.
that's, and a lot of that, the true appreciation, it comes when you're looking up high onto the field. I mean, those
Yes.
kids down there marching, they don't get the real visual of it.
Right.
I think
Right.
that's the part that's really kind of neat, is they don't even get to see exactly what it is they're doing while they're doing it.
Correct. They are just but and a lot of things that we do at Miamisburg, we do a lot of video study. And
Okay.
so after we compete, like on a Sunday, our Monday rehearsals start with video study, so they can see what they've actually done. They can see their performance, and we can see, oh, like here, oh, low brass. Did you hear there? You totally covered up the clarinets. We couldn't hear them. Okay, so we're going to work on that dynamic contrast today. And so we talk about the pedagogy of what needs to get better and what doesn't. But then there's always these things like, look at this beautiful form. Look at all of you. Look at all of you. All that look at that performance, and like just some of the sass that comes off of them,
Oh, I
are they
love that.
get a chance to be different people. And I told him, I was like, Beyonce has a different alternate personality she uses on stage. I think every single one of you should have an alternate personality. And I said, when you put on that uniform, that is your super suit. That is your protection. You can literally be whoever you want to be, because nobody knows any different. And
Right.
they it's really awesome. I had a girl right now who's our clarinet soloist, and she is a beautiful musician, and she was the most timid eighth grader I'd ever met. She wouldn't speak to me the entire first year. I know she struggled with anxiety and depression a lot. Just a very, very quiet, introverted. And now, after like 4 seasons of wins, this girl is just like, the judges are like, we need more of her. She's wonderful, And if you would have told me 4 years ago that this little girl was going to be our soloist and our main attraction of the presentation, I would have told you you were kidding. Like, no,
You're done.
nah.
But look what helped her transition.
Yes,
Look at what
music.
brought that life out. You can see, and that's the part I want people to capture. That didn't happen. Some kids that could happen by being good at English. Some kids that could happen by being good at math. But for this child, it was music.
Mm-hmm.
It was music that brought her out of her shell and is making her who she is today.
Correct.
It's that what it did for her soul, what it did for, it fulfilled a spot in her. And sometimes I think I don't think we put enough importance on that.
Yes.
That a career, yes, obviously you have to pay the bills. That is, yes, the goal is that you are self-sufficient in that, but it should be more than that.
Yes.
It should be something that has passion, that just lights your world on fire. It should be something that you can't live without, because then work isn't work.
Yes.
And I kind of see it in your eyes. I can kind of
Yes.
see that is what it is for you. It's just, it lights you up. It makes you passionate about life. And I don't know how we would ever not want our children to have that.
Correct. And I don't have children. My husband and I don't have children. We tried to have children. But we always tell people that, the kids we teach are our children.
Right.
And we look after them as such. And so we don't just push music education because it pays our bills. We push music education because it makes better humans. It just makes better human beings, more empathetic human beings,
Yep.
more human beings who are not only in tune with their emotions, but they're okay with emotions. I think so many times in the society we're told to suck it up and move on.
I agree with
Don't
that.
be upset. And it's just like, it's a look at, some of the, when you lose somebody, like obviously this is a big thing that's coming back around just because of anniversaries of things and royal family and whatever. But Princess Diana, when she passed away, there was a huge, like Elton John felt so impassioned to rewrite a song for her. There are things that, and if somebody just told him to suck it up and get over it,
Right.
he's dead, we wouldn't have that beautiful other rendition of his song. And it's just like, it's okay for people to have those feelings. It's okay for us to write about those things because it's part of the therapeutic acceptance and letting go, but then also feeling like it's not a loss.
Right.
You know, I had a very dear family member who was, he was a better musician than me. He was friends with my husband. They went to, they played on the Lehman Drumline together. And, even through a lot of his struggles, music was a thing for him, and it was always something that he went back to. And I know he lost his battle with addiction, but music was always something that he and I could, even when we weren't talking a whole lot because he was just so riddled with his life the way it was, we could always send each other like YouTube links to music,
Right.
Because that was a way to communicate. So
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it's okay with emotions. See, that's the whole point of this, is that emotions are okay.
Yep.
They're there. I think of September the 11th.
Yes.
My son-in-law, my daughter and my son-in-law are both musicians. He sent me a piece that was an excerpt or something that was written, and I don't remember if it showed up in a newspaper, but there was a student from Juilliard who didn't really know what to do that day, how to help. He took his violin and he went down and he sat at one of the points where everybody came in, the firefighters and everything, to get rest, and he played his violin. And this whole article is about what he experienced doing that. And what he thought he'd maybe go down for one or two little tunes and that would be it. But he ended up there for hours till he could barely play anymore, because music is what they needed. He needed to give it. He needed to take that music from inside of him and give it to other people.
Yep.
Because it was such a tragedy. It was the only way he knew how to help. And he talked about, the firemen, how they thanked him, how it helped them, how, Amazing Grace at that point in time may have been the only thing that brought sanity. It's something we don't think about.
Yep.
We don't think about how, music does that. There was another really cool article. My son-in-law's always sending me these great things from the dean of music at, I think it's Boston. And he talks about when he told his parents he was going to be a music major, his mother said, well, that's the waste of a good IQ. Because that was, well, there it goes. And he talked about how musicians, and I personally would say people in the arts, they're doctors. They're just as important in some aspects as a physician. Mm-hmm. Because what they do with music or their art touches the soul. Or as Plato said, it rearranges the insides.
Yes.
And that to me is, if somebody has that ability, it should be fostered.
Yes.
And celebrated. And it shouldn't be, oh, there's the loss of a good IQ. It should be as proud as my son's going to be a doctor.
Correct.
And I hope that message is starting to get to kids, that this is important stuff you're doing here.
Yeah.
And even if you're making somebody laugh, that's important.
Yes. Comedy is also, I think comedy is also an art, because truth be told, my father always said that I should be a stand-up comic if nothing else works. So Just because of the perspective I happen to have on life, and the satirical brain that I do have. But I think that, I'm a very sensitive, emotional person, but in my profession as a band director, being surrounded by males constantly,
Yeah.
that's something that is not, and it's not that they try to. I'm not trying to hate on any of the male band directors. I've had plenty of wonderful male band directors who have encouraged me and supported me to be here
Right.
today.
Right.
But there is this overwhelming sense of, you know being the best at this or being the best at that, or I have the best this, or my program does that, and because this is how we are trained to find value. And I've been here at this program so long, and I make this amount of money now. To me, it's not about that. I left a full-time job with benefits to basically come up and make, a fraction of that at Miamisburg. And because arts, I mean, it costs money, but like, there's, band boosters, they can only do so much.
Right. That's
um,
right.
and school districts only have so much. But the helping several different programs, I've been able to make a career for myself as a designer, a judge, a consultant, a technician, all of those things. I do all of those things for different programs, um, in different ways. But I think my big thing now is getting to advocating for this very thing that we're talking about. Of, you can talk to the kids about emotions, and we do want you
Hmm.
to, as because maybe like the older male faction wasn't so comfortable talking about their own emotions. It's hard for them to kind of, let that be a thing. And I remember I had a professor once tell me, when you go into the classroom, it's about them. It's not about you. Shut down and make it about them. Well, my pet died that day. I had 3 ferrets, and I had a ferret that died. Really
Oh,
sweet, wonderful ferrets died. And I went into school, and I found out, like, just a few minutes before. And it was just like, I went on the podium, and I cried in front of my kids. And I said, my pet died, and I'm really sad today. And I said, can somebody just look through our book and find some happy music that we can play today, and just give me a few minutes, and then we come back out. I'll take all the suggestions for happy music that we're going to play. So I went back to my office. I cried a little bit more, blew my nose, cleaned myself up, came back out. And then I had kids who were like, oh, let's play this one, and let's play this one, and let's play this one. And this song is called Joy. Let's play this one. And so it was just like, recognizing that emotions are okay. It's all right to say I'm having an emotion. And then what can we do to help that? What can we do musically? And I didn't need a therapist. I needed middle school kids to play me happy music.
well, think what a learning lesson that was,
Yeah.
because those moments happen in life.
Mm-hmm.
Those moments are always going to happen in life, and as if a child recognizes there are going to be times when you're sad, sometimes very, very sad, or your friend's going to be sad, very, very sad. What can I do? How do I deal with this? And he goes back to, I remember when we were in music and we did happy songs, rather than sit back and go, what are you crying for? There's no humanity in that at all.
Yeah.
The humanity is, ooh, something's wrong. What can I do to help? How can I help this? Which I'm right there advocating that with you. I'm right there because I do think that's where the arts are strong. It's like Plato said, they order the insides. I am sad. Think about how many times maybe in the prison camps, poetry still lived, music still lived. Some very famous pieces, particularly of violin music, came out of that, and they're not what I would call peppy.
No.
But yet, what did they show? What did they teach? What can we learn from that?
Yes.
And that, to me, it's the 30 minutes. We have to wrap this up. And I think he's going to cut that part out.
That's okay.
I want to thank you so much for doing this. Is there something you want to make sure we get on this, that we get out?
I would, my biggest message is to help us help the kids, help the educators, help the kids. It is a profession that is wildly, and teaching in general, any subject,
Yep. Yep.
it is wildly underfunded. It is underrespected. It is in any arts education, math educate. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Educators are undervalued and
I
underappreciated,
agree with that.
and every subject is worth teaching, and every subject is equally worth teaching. And I would like I would just absolutely love for our society to realize that that is the case, and not everything that is worth it you can test on a standardized test.
Oh, that is, mm,
Yeah,
how do you test, how do you test joy?
right.
How do you test peace?
Yeah, you
How do you
can't.
test a solid individual?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I agree
yeah,
with that.
it's one of those things that for 13 years in the public schools, that sentiment in my heart never changed. Never. I felt like buildings where the teachers felt appreciated, specific buildings where teachers felt it. But I've also been in other districts where, as a district, they're not appreciated. They're shown that at the state and
Yeah.
federal level that it's not something. And we're gonna end up seeing a teacher shortage here soon. Um, because if some kids are like, I'm gonna try to get out, what happens if I don't get a job? Well, then you're gonna have to do something else.
Right.
You know? And then there goes there. Well, I spent 4 years on my passion, on my love. Like, what am I supposed to do? And it's a fight to find a job. I still, back in 2003, had to fight to find a job, tooth and nail, and to prove yourself. And when you go into it for giving your gift to somebody else, and then you can't find a spot to give your gift, it's very disheartening.
Although I do know one thing about artists. If they're shut down in one area, it pops out in another.
That's correct.
You never shut down successfully an artist.
Yep.
It will find its way.
And I have to share just a short little story about that, not shutting down the artists. The middle school that I was at in Florida, I have to say I was very supported by that administration. Always, the families and community around it, always super supportive of the band program. But the band had never performed like they would do their music performance assessment and get their rating, but we never were recognized for it. And I said, can we play on the spring sports pep rally, since we just got a superior for the 50th time in the school's history? We would like to do that. And they said, oh, that's just a wonderful idea. Let's do it. So we went into the gym, and this was a brand new thing. And unfortunately, there were some snafus with scheduling, and there weren't nearly enough teachers, and there weren't nearly enough administration in there. And a separate little fight that had nothing to do with us, broke out, as it does in middle school. Somebody says this and whatever. But then it spread to the whole gym. Then everybody started going crazy and yelling at the band to get off the stage in a not so nice language. And so it was, I just told the kids, I said, get up and take your stuff out the back, walk all the way back down to the band room. We're going back to the band room, because they were getting very nasty with some of the things that they were saying. Some of these other kids who weren't used to having to sit and watch the band. And so I went down there, and my kids were crying. They were just devastated. And we just had this big old, I started crying because I was angry. I was so angry. You just hurt my babies, and I'm an angry mama bear. And so after school was over, I stormed up into the administration and was probably a little bit unprofessional, but I was very emotional about it. And I said, how dare you allow that to happen to my kids? You never invited us to do that. And then when we do it, there's no support. Nobody's in there making sure that everything goes okay. Now my kids are really upset. And we need to make this up to them somehow, some way. And I don't care what you do, but it needs to be righted.
Yep.
And I went back into the band room, and none of the kids had left school yet, and they were just all in there still crying. And I was giving hugs and just big embraces, everybody. And so then I had to put out an email to parents about what happened and whatever. And then I want to say we ended up having another concert where only kids who were their friends, like the band members got to invite certain members, and only if you were invited were you allowed to attend this concert and ice cream social. So that was, they made it up to us that was something special. But I remember, like, several years later, I still have students from that band who are now in college, out of college, doing other things, and saying, like, I still remember that day where, you know, you didn't let them shut us down. You didn't let them tell us to go back to the band room. You didn't let them shame us back into our area. You stood up and you said something about it. And I probably almost got fired that day because I was a little upset. But you know, you can't shut down an artist. You can't. No. And when you try, it's a very volatile situation. Because the energy that's coming out, I can't stop it. There's no stopping energy.
No, it's like what happened was appalling.
Yes.
And the fact that they tried to make it right is good.
Yes. And to this day, they still have the invitation only band and ice cream social thing. And the girl who took over for me, or I should say the young woman who took over for me, she still does. Now it's tickets. Every band member in the whole band program, so beginning all the way through the upper levels, they each get 10 tickets, and they're allowed to invite 10 people to that concert. So that way, whoever they invite, they know is going to appreciate the show.
Well, and you know what? They're worth more than that. They're worth those kids coming, and the kids coming are worth the music that's being expressed. I mean, and that's a really good lesson.
Yeah.
I mean,
who do you want to share? Who do you want to give your ticket to? Who do you feel comfortable exposing your art to and
right, actually exposing yourself, your whole soul to?
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for this. This has been wonderful. I think it's another aspect. It's another aspect of the arts. This is what we do. This is who we are. So thank you for doing this today.
You are welcome. It was my pleasure, Ellen. And if you ever want to talk again, hit me up.
I do. I would love, and actually, I'd love to get Maureen and you and Derek Gill. That would be, and we had Derek Gill do it.
Yes. Oh, I love Derek Gill.
On that one. We'll kind of getting you and Maureen and Derek Gill, and we'll get everybody and your husband, and we'll get them together and do one together.
Yes, we should. I love Derek Gill. I used to work with him when we were 15 years old, before either of us were even artists, before we even knew.
All right, we'll work on that. We will get that together, because I think that could be a fantastic.
Oh, yes.
You know, because he's as excited as you, and Maureen is as excited as she is. And that's the part I want people to catch, is this passion. It's fabulous.
Yep.
Okay, we will work on that. All right. Hey, thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.